I don't know if you guys saw this, but Israel Adesanya did an interview on Demetrius Johnson's YouTube channel, Mighty Mouse. And he basically said that he isn't going to be fighting Alex Periera kind of ever again.
If I fight him again, I knock him out, what's that? What are they going to say?
Oh, you already did that.
Oh, it's 3-2.
Yeah,
it's no, best out of 7. I'm like, bro, I'm 34, man.
Yeah.
I've only got certain more fights left.
And the reasons he gave were the fact that in their first fight in kickboxing, he basically won the entire fight and lost a bad decision. Second fight, he lost. Third fight, he was winning the entire fight and got that sort of early stoppage with Mark Otter in there. And then the fourth fight, like first fight in MMA, second fight in MMA, he knocked him out cold. So he thinks he has got nothing left to prove. He's 34. He wants to move on, do other things, etc., etc. This kind of got me thinking about rivalries in MMA. And just kind of what they mean to us as fight fans, what we can kind of expect to see, what are some of the best rivalries we've seen in MMA, and so on and so forth. And I'm going to tell you a little secret about some of these rivalries and why they actually exist. I'm going to get into that in just a minute, but before I jump into the bulk of the video, if you guys wouldn't mind, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps with the YouTube algorithm, helps grow the channel. And also let me know below who you think some of the biggest and best rivalries in UFC or maybe even MMA history are. So obviously the first one I want to talk about is Israel Adesanya versus Alex Periera because it's kind of top of mind. Now these two are rivalries. To recap, if you don't know the story already, they fought for a couple times in kickboxing. Alex Periera beat him twice. The narrative is that first fight, Izzy won, but it was kind of a bad decision. Second fight, Pereira knocked him out. He comes over to MMA, kind of gets fast-tracked to a title shot with Izzy. He loses that first fight to Izzy, and then Izzy beats him and reclaims it with one of the greatest knockouts in UFC history and one of the best post-fight celebrations in UFC history, if I do say so myself. Now, with that, after he gets the knockout, he goes off, he loses to Sean Strickland. And in his last title defense, Alex Periera, after he defeats Yuri Prohaska, he actually kind of what seemed to be extended an olive branch to Izzy. And he said, hey, Izzy, come to daddy, right? To maybe do their trilogy at 205, whatever the case may be. And it's kind of been discussed, the fact that, you know, Izzy does seem bitter about their rivalry. He seems to not like Alex, you know, roots against him, tries to help anybody who goes up to fight him just to kind of bring him down. But the reverse seems to be true with Alex Periera. In that moment after he beat Yuri, it looked as though he was extending an olive branch. He basically said the fact that, you know, he was down, he was out, he was, you know, working in a car shop or something like this. And then his rivalry with Izzy lit a fire under him to become better. And look where he is now, right? Now he's defended the light heavyweight belt one time. First defense of the title since John Jones vacated the light heavyweight. And, you know, this is one of those rivalries that makes both people the best version of themselves. And so, although I think Izzy is still sort of a bitter rival of Alex, I'm not sure the feelings are mutually reciprocated in that sense. I think Pereira is a little bit more appreciative of that rivalry because of what it's led him to do. And there is some hilarious stuff that kind of did go on back and forth within that rivalry. One is the fact that, you know, after he beat Izzy that first time, there were kind of all those memes going up about if Izzy joins professional golf, and then they show Alex Periera kind of in a golf cart coming to face him there. Izzy goes into skating, Alex Periera on ice, all these different things. So it was very funny. But some of the other big rivalries that just jump off of the page that you need to kind of keep in mind. Some of the greatest ones in UFC history. These are my favorites anyway. obviously John Jones and Daniel Cormier. Now, I wasn't a big fan back then, but I still knew that this was going on. And you can tell to this day that they still hate each other. And they may say different things on the mic, right? But you can just tell, like, when DC's sort of talking about him, he gets a little bit more stiff, and he's like, yeah, I'll be fair, I wish John Jones the best, this and that, right? And then John Jones will just kind of have that little smile like, oh, I got nothing against DC. But you can tell there's just like this seething hatred between the two of them. They don't like each other at all. And with this rivalry, the sad part is like it cost DC, I believe, the championship at light heavyweight. And DC has said in the past that he just doesn't know if he's better than John Jones. Now, a lot of people don't think so, but John Jones got busted for PEDs a couple of times when they fought, right? And so you kind of have this thing where John Jones won on more than one occasion from the looks of it, but you're never going to know if DC faced like a fair and square competition, right? Because John Jones, he cheated, right? He cheated. So you won't know, like John Jones on paper is the better guy because we've only seen John Jones win. But then you look and you see him getting busted for PEDs, and then you look at kind of the age factor, right? Like DC, I think, was 36 or 37 when he fought John Jones, who, like, this is 10 years ago, right? Who was 26. So it's just really interesting to see kind of how that rivalry played out, and it's certainly one of the best with like the passion, the hatred, the vitriol. One of the rivalries that absolutely tops the charts for me is Usman versus Covington. Now, this seems like old news now because they're both kind of out of the title contention, and it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But when they first fought, you got to remember how polarizing everything was at the time because, like, Trump was in power. Covington kind of latched himself onto Trump and the Make America Great thing. And then there was this whole, like, Black Lives Matter thing going on. And then the two of them were meeting up, talking to one another. There's one side that 100% was, Team Trump, Team Colby, all these other kind of things. The other side was Team Usman, Black Lives Matter, Democrats, racism, yada, 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 right? And they all kind of meet in the middle, and they have one of the most epic fights, like one of the first, like, most epic fights that I ever saw, as I would call a super fan. You know what I mean? Like, they come together, they meet in the middle, nobody grapples really, it's just a kind of a cardio and striking clinic that Usman ended up winning and kind of finishing Covington, some call it an early stoppage, with like, I think a minute left in the 5th round. But it was a killer fight. And that was sort of I don't know if that was Usman's first title defense. I think it was his first title defense after gaining the championship off of Tyron Woodley. And so that rivalry played into a second title fight, which, he also won a close decision, I believe. And I think that rivalry was so good just because of the kind of political atmosphere in the United States at the time. And it kind of played into kind of what was going on politically, as well as creating just an amazing fight for fans and everything like that. And obviously the top of the bill was Conor versus Khabib. This, to me, is the most epic rivalry in UFC history, in my opinion. Because I don't think you're going to have a situation, a fighter, a perfect storm of build-up to a fight like you did with Conor versus Khabib. There were so many factors that needed to play into this to make this rivalry what it was. So first of all, you had Conor, who is kind of, he is the king of stirring shit up, right? The king of getting eyeballs, right? He did that whole situation with the dolly, the bus, everything like that. You had a Khabib who was, intimidating one of Conor's friends. They're meeting. Conor's talking shit. He's trashing Khabib's religion. He's talking about his father and his family and his country and all these different things, right? And at the same time, now you have Khabib going after Conor, being like, I'm going to make you tap like a chicken. There was all this buildup. There was so much emotion. And then there was sort of the more global side of it, right? Which was like an East versus West kind of thing. And then you had the Muslim side of it too, where for the first time in probably sports history, at least in a long time, the Muslim community kind of got behind Khabib because he was their champion, right? And, you know, in a time where, like, everybody was hating on Muslims and all these other kind of things, Khabib stood there among a hostile crowd and unapologetically declared himself proud of his faith, his religion, his family, his father. Well, Conor and a bunch of guys were, like, you know, putting drinks in his face, saying that you're a backwards rat, all these other kind of things. And so it made this whole thing even bigger than it should have been. And you never know, but I just don't think we're going to see a rivalry like that ever again. So those are just some of the top rivalries. I just wanted to talk about them because, you know, rivalries are top of mind for me right now in terms of an MMA fan. And it's just an interesting thing because, like, why rivalries are so good for sports and for entertainment, for us as fans and for the company, right? And just what is it? What is it behind rivalries that capture us, that make us feel like we need to pick a side, that make us sort of emotionally invested in the fight that's happening? I don't know the answer to that question. But certainly, like, what's his name? Chael Sonnen and these guys, like, they, even in the marketing world, like, unless you can elicit an emotion, you can't get people to care. And if you can't get people to care, then what are we doing, right? Chael talks about this all the time. And Conor is kind of the master of that. But I think all of these rivalries have something in common in the sense that, number one, a lot of us can see ourselves in these various rivalries. We've all had a rivalry, a rival in our lives, right? Whether it be that jerk off at work who, like, you know, causes our problems, sports teams, anything that we've done in our life, there's probably been somewhere along the way where there's been a rivalry. It wouldn't be to this scale, but we kind of know that feeling of, oh, I hate this guy, I want to get his number, right? So, and we can see ourselves in the position of whoever side we're on. So, it's just really fascinating to me. These were some of the top rivalries that I can think of. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. And once again, let me know in the comments, what are some rivalries that you think? And is there any rivalries out there potentially that could top these ones here? Anyway, that's all from me. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time.